put it on for you. If you ever start to really win, if you ever find your queen, I hope she lets you down, 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 down. I hope she lets you down, 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 down. But I hope she lets you down, 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 down. I hope she lets you down, 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 down.
Have you never focused on another? Have you never focused, say brother? Have you ever noticed man go far? You be driving me loco. Reason I believe in you, pronto. You are the one that was supposed to carry me go. But when I'm on the road, baby, that's why I cannot even vouch for you. I cannot call on you. And if I don't love you, not taboo. When you don't love me too. Now I erase my matching tattoo, cause I put it on for you. If you ever start to really win, if you ever find a king, and I hope he lets you down,
down, down, down, down. I hope she lets you down, 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 down. But I hope she lets you down, 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 down. I hope she lets you down, 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 down. Kwani, how many times I'm losing the fight? I'll be ready to die, falling into you. Now ain't getting what took. Kikuni elimisha, when I wanna fall, I was into you. So now when you're gone and you're noticing, there was a diamond you didn't see. I've been shining my way out of your darkness. That's why I cannot even vouch for you. I cannot call on you. So if I don't love you, not taboo. If you don't love me too. So I raise my matching tattoos, cause I put them on for you. If you ever start to really win, if you ever find your queen, I hope she lets you down, 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 down. I hope she lets you down, 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 down. But I hope she lets you down, 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 down. I hope she lets you down, 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 down.
Oxygen mix.
Jealousy, always comparing myself to you. Sometimes and I feel like I overdo. Sometimes and I feel like I'm over you. Thinking and I feel like I have no clue. Thinking and you got moods. Sometimes I act a fool. Thinking and in a choma sana. Sometimes don't. Sometimes I act too cool. Thinking and you act a fool. Sometimes you drive me crazy. I swear.
Pawa Radio. Power up.
Consistency. Consistent. Consistently. Consistent. Consistency. Consistent. Consistent. Day by day, 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 day by day. Consistent, consistently. Anxiety. Naanza tabia za self-sabotage. Naanza tabia za overjudge. Naanza kujifungia. Naanza kujikazia. Mwenzio nafunga hisia. Sometimes I feel so blue.
President Ruto is on his US, and quite actually it's called it's a historic trip and tour to the US. And something interesting right there is that Ruto has stricken a deal, a multi-billion deal in his White House visit. This is a story according to the Daily Nation on page 7. President William Ruto and his US counterpart Joe Biden yesterday announced a raft of multi-billion shilling new investment deals in Kenya as the two countries marked 60 years of partnership. Now, the new investment deals announced on the final day of President Ruto's 4-day state visit to the U.S. largely focus on green energy, security, education, which is quite exciting because we shall be talking a lot about education on today's show, and also and governance. So that's quite interesting. Now, in numbers, 917 million Kenyan shillings this is the funding that will go towards strengthening and modernizing the police service, of course, on security. And then 642 million shillings is what the U.S. has committed for fighting international criminal networks in the region. Of course, a lot of Kenyans have a lot to say about this visit. We had the criticism that came from, him spending over 200 million on his private jet as he went to visit on his international tour with the U.S. Of course, this also comes amid a dissatisfaction with Kenyans among Kenyans because of the finance bill. So let's wait and see how this plays out. But moving on to some rather sad news, we have a Kenyan who went to climb the mountain of Mount Everest. I beg your pardon, Mount Everest. And so the news just in is that he's passed on. So Mr. Cheriot Kirui set off to scale Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen in April, and he was well aware of the risks that he was taking, particularly his susceptibility to frostbite and the life-threatening altitude illness. So we've just found out that he passed on, and it just got me thinking about like the heights at which man is willing to go to self-actualization. Sometimes, you go ahead and do whatever it is that you feel you have to do. But when it comes to having your own life at risk, I'm not a big fan of that. So I don't know. You can tell us in the comments. Let us know, would you go to extreme heights? And this is pun intended, to self-actualize. I don't know. But now let's get into some music, and then we come back and we talk about the Iranian president's also funerals. Feels like it's a gloomy day here. Bad news, left, right, and center. This is Power Radio. Let's see you on the other side of the break.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Kwa majina ni yani nakujua yani okonko saa zingine life utuweka kwa kona, unadhani umefika mwisho juu ya stress na mahangaiko, na saa zingine life utubamba sana. No time for the bad mind people, wakadinali avoid those people. Ukiwa na stress usijinyonge, tafuta mtu mkae chini mbonge, lazima tutafines, sisi sio wanyonge. Leo mahangaiko, lakini kesho mafanikio. Awote furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita. Furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita.
unaona nikiwaroga tu, nikiwashika tu, pia mi ukapitia tu. Ni mwana mamangu akiwa mgonjwa, najua vile na feel. Nimepoteza familia, nimekuwa na depression, najua vile na feel. Ama testimony kama nimekuwa poa, buda pia utahil. Kitu muhimu ni peace ya life, kukapitia ni part ya life. Na send good energy your way, bad energy stay far away. Hello, smile kidogo, punguza stress. Hello, smile kidogo, smile.
Awote furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita. Furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita. And we let them know, don't disturb my peace, don't disturb my happiness. I live for the moment, kila siku enjoyment. Do what makes you happy, you can't please everybody. Usikubali stress, ifanye ukuwe depressed. Ukiwa na stress, usijinyonge. Tafuta mtu mkae chini mbonge, lazima tutafines, sisi sio wanyonge. Leo mahangaiko, lakini kesho mafanikio. Awote furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita. Furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita. Furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita. Furahia maisha, kwa hii dunia sote tunapita.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up. Only station, Power Radio.
That's Too Easy, Fading Out by Bien. And it's playing right here on Power Radio. This is the Power Morning Drive Show. I'm your host, Wanyoike. And we are still doing our news roundup. The final story of the day is some exciting news from the Asian Pacific, Asia Pacific. So South Korea, leaders of South Korea, China and Japan will meet next week in Seoul for the first time for their trilateral talks in more than 4 years to discuss how to revive their cooperation. South Korea's presidential office said on Thursday, after their inaugural standalone trilateral summit in 2008, the three
mapenzi mbona sitaki, afadhali nimpende aloniza, sina wakuniita chichichi mama na mi chichichi baba. 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 Ushua kama nakupenda tena, ngoja ninywe pombe nione kama nitakumiss. Sikushua kama nakufeel tena, ngoja ninywe pombe nione kama nitakukiss. Sikushua nawe, sikushua nawe, sikushua nawe, sikushua nawe.
Labda umetuni station na kuzingua, maybe umekuwa na option ya kuchagua, au imeingia fashion, so ijua maana niko kwenye cheni na suwa nimejaribu kuribu, bado system inakushigu, shit feelings zako zenyewe ni za kubu, stini kama unavuta sigara steam weko, I do my best na kwenda rest, naonekana nimesha fairy test, naona kinoma unanicheza, kosa sio kosa unashtakiwa kesi, na mimi bado nakupenda, bado naona tunaweza kwenda, na tunayo nafasi ya kuyajenga, channel yetu imeingia jenga.
Ushua kama nakupenda tena, ngoja ninywe pombe nione kama nitakumiss.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Another day, another crisis. Keyboard warriors still typing. Mini lava siku hizi spendi fighting. Na maheta hawawezi ntoa timing. Na hata wakinita guide, I know my baby will be by me. Na wakiniseti kwa IG, dawa ya watiaji huwanga silence. Niko sherehe mina vibe, nanyi munani analyze. Who I wonder why, me I'm just tryna catch a wine. We shughulika na your life. Niko sherehe mina vibe, nanyi munani analyze. Who I wonder why, I'm just tryna catch a wine. We shughulika na your life. Cheki zangu zimenai. Don't you disrespect my lover. Sina number my guy. Tonight I don't want no drama. Sina number my guy. Chaber dongingero anahero gasianda. Sina number my guy. Leo ni party hadi mchana. Sina number my guy. Sherehe na piganga na kikosi. Kwa mfuko pesa haikosi. Mademu wananitanga kiongozi. Vile mimi hutesanga Nairobi. Sele zimeripoti. Chini tuko kwa magoti. Aki wewe usinirekodi. Kesho nipate mmesha niposti. Niko sherehe mina vibe. Nanyi munani analyze. Who I wonder why, me I'm just tryna catch a wine. We shughulika na your life. Niko sherehe mina vibe. Nanyi munani analyze. Ooh, I wonder why, I'm just tryna catch a wine. We shughulika na your life. Cheki zangu nice. Don't you disrespect my lover. Sina number my guy. Tonight I don't want no drama. Sina number my guy. Chaber dongingero anahero gasianda. Sina number my guy. Leo ni party hadi mchana. Sina number my guy. Sina noma. Sina noma my guy. Sina noma. Sina noma my guy. Sina noma my guy. Chaber dongingero anahero gasianda. Sina noma my guy.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Sina Noma by Charisma, and it's playing right here on Power Radio. This is the Power Morning Drive Show. My name is Wanyoike, and now we are getting into the conversation of today. My guest is already in studio, and I just want to say hi and to introduce herself. Hi, Linah.
Hi, Anne.
How are you?
Let me match up your energy. I'm good.
Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to. You don't have. Karibu sana.
Thank you so
to
much
the
for having
Power
me.
Morning Drive Show.
Asante sana.
It's been some time now coming along, but we are here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Please let the people know who you is.
So good morning. My name is Linah Kitala. I'm here to talk about education. Yay. I represent Vambo. Vambo is an amazing space where we have Vambo Academy and Vambo AI. And we are conquering Africa one country at a time. But you'll know how very soon as we continue with this conversation.
Amazing.
Yes.
Karibu sana. And so, for our discussion for today, now, for those who do not know that 25th of May always marks Africa Day yearly. And so because tomorrow is Africa Day, so this year's theme of Africa Day, they have decided to shed a light on education. And so the theme for this year is Educate an African Fit for the 21st Century. pause, because that's already a very loaded statement right there. And then it goes on to say that building resilient education systems for increased access to inclusive, lifelong, quality, and relevant learning in Africa. I'm going to say that one more time. Educate an African fit for the 21st century. And how they're going to do this is by building resilient education systems for increased access to inclusive, lifelong, quality, and relevant learning in Africa. Wow. Linah, I mean, when you hear about this theme, what comes to your mind first? It's quite a packed a theme right there. There's like a lot of, moving pieces here and there. What comes to your mind right off the bat?
I think one thing that comes to mind when it comes to this theme is the fact that all of us can't escape education. Education is a process of life, whether we are doing it in the formal space of going to school to either get a primary certification, secondary certification, or going to universities and college, or whether we are doing it informally.
Yes.
By just learning skills outside classroom settings, or whether we are on Google hashtag.
Yes.
We are all learning. So
Yes.
education is part of our lives, and we can't escape that. Every day is a learning chance for us to learn something. There's a statement that says we learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Yes.
So education is always going to be part of us. So I think that for the African Union to highlight education right now is because Africa is at a very interesting era where we have done things in a particular way for, like, let's say 4 centuries. And now we are in the verge of, we have the effects of digitalization, we have the effects of the internet, and now with the rise of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So Africa no longer is learning for Africa, but Africa is equally exposed to like the global space.
Yes.
So how then is one going to educate themselves, not only to be able to facilitate their life or facilitate their day-to-day in the space of the African continent, but also globally, because we don't only want to have a voice when it comes to our nations, but we want to have a voice within the larger continent and also globally as Africans. So education will play a major role in facilitating that for Africans.
And I mean, the first half of that theme is that we're focusing on educating a 21st century African. What do you think a 21st century African, what kind of education do you think a 21st century African needs?
I believe a 21st century African, as I've mentioned, is not one just having to face what is within their domain or their specific nation, but a 21st century African also is affected by what is happening in Africa as a continent and what is happening globally. So as you're educating this 21st century African, then you have to consider what are the things that set their worldviews. What are they exposed to? What careers make sense to them to pick up as they move on with their journey in education. You also have to think about the resources that are available to them. If they're like in a rural setup, their resources are totally different compared to someone who's like in a more urban setting. So as you're setting out like your education system, you have to keep in regards the person who's in the rural setup, the person who's in the urban setup. And then also you have to be very cognizant that both the people in the rural and in the urban setup are having effects that are coming from outside, to their particular spaces. So the 21st century African is not only influenced by what they're learning in the classroom.
Yes.
They're affected by what they're learning at home. They're affected by the gadgets that they have. Most of the school-going children in primary school right now have phones, especially in the urban setting. In Kenya specifically, most of them have gadgets like laptops. Some of them have like iPads and all these things, and that affects what they are being exposed to. We have, as I said, Google, we have social media. Our kids are on Instagram, they're on TikTok, they're on, they're on all these platforms, and all these platforms, whether we like it or not, actually affect their worldview.
That's right.
So this 21st century person that we want to educate is exposed to so much outside their constant environment that they live in.
Yes.
So this it's important to think about all these factors, like what are the education systems looking like on the ground? Do they have access to books? Do they have access to teachers? Are they in spaces that are like faced by conflict? Are they in spaces that are like peaceful? Do they have how frequent do they attend school? Sometimes with like there are kids who don't attend school because they don't have food, so they end up staying at home and not go to school. So how like there's so many things that affect this 21st century African that you're trying to educate, from the ones who are like in low level education, the primary school, let's say, secondary, to the tertiary institutions. So many things like
to consider.
Yeah, to consider.
Yeah. And of course, the African education system has been under fire for a long time, being accused of being, it's still colonial in nature. We talk about things like, we are only educating people so that they can pass examinations. And when you come down to the quality of the person that you're taking through this education system, the critical thinking, for example, is not there. So with that backdrop, could you kindly share with our audience some statistics of the status of education in Africa? Where are we? So that before we can even innovate lifelong, that whole theme that was saying lifelong, innovative, inclusive education, we need to understand, first of all, what are the intricacies of the problems of the status of education in Africa?
So let me first, there's something you've mentioned that I think is very key and important, that our education, we kind of see it as a way to match up with the quote unquote developed world. But it's interesting to find out that, excuse me, that education has always been part of the African culture. Education didn't just showed up when the Brits came to colonize us, or the French or the Spanish, name them. Education was always part of us as Africans. We had systems where, if let's say you are to be trained, like your family was the midwifing family, naturally you will be trained as a midwife to take up that part of the society duties that your family usually takes up.
Yes.
If let's say your dad or mom was the specialist of communication, and maybe they used to beat the drums to say, hey, yo, the village is meeting.
Yes.
Then you will naturally find yourself being taught on how to do that.
Yeah.
If you are the next in line to be chief for your particular people, then you will always have the training on how to act as a chief, what to wear as a chief, how to dress up as a chief. So we should not feel like education has never been part of us as Africans. It has always been there. The only difference is we were more of the quote unquote informal,
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because that's something
Yes,
that,
like
first
we
of
were
all,
not
really revs
sitting-
me up.
We were not sitting in classes to learn, but we were practically being taught how to learn and have skill day to day in our African society.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that it will be interesting, or can be like one of the coolest things we can do moving on as Africans, is think how to still use our traditional ways of learning and like substitute them with our formal ways of learning. I'll come to that point way later, but you said, we mentioned about statistics.
Yes.
It's very interesting that 60% of children in Africa are not educated.
60%.
Yeah.
A whopping 60%.
Are not educated, and I'll break it down.
Yes.
So nearly 3 among 10 school-age children don't attend school. So out of 10, 3 are not actively going to a classroom every day. Then in sub-Saharan Africa, like countries including Kenya, Malawi, Uganda, Rwanda, name them. Our African standards compared to global standards when it comes to education, especially in primary school, we're at like 65%. Yet globally, it's like the rate is like 87%.
Doing badly right there.
Not too bad, but we
not
have
so
room
good.
to improve. At
Yeah.
65%,
Yeah.
we need to clap for ourselves because it's been
Power Radio. Tune in.
No, I meant to play this one. Yeah.
It's been hectic.
Yeah.
But we remember this 65 is also coming at the backdrop that we have had conflicts in Africa. We have had like natural disasters like famine and all these things, yet we are still at 65%. So we're doing
Somewhere,
yeah.
yes.
Then the literacy rate for people
Yes.
aged between 15 and 24 in Africa right now stands at 75%.
Okay.
Yet in the emerging economies, it's like 90%. So
Wow.
you see those
Still-
gaps, like
Yeah.
we need to
Fill
fill
them.
in
Yeah.
the blank. Yeah, but it's not all gloom and doom. If we get it right, especially where we are right now as Africans. I've been thinking about the different dispensations of the revolutions that we've had. And before, in all the first, the second, now we're in the fourth,
Yeah.
Africa didn't really have as much capacity to do many things in the previous revolutions. But right now, I think Africa can really strike a balance to use not only its natural resources, which include the land, the people, we have resource,
Yes.
but also the exposure we've had. Like, yes, colonization was an ish, but now let us not wallow in the space of we were colonized. Let us go like the tools that we got through colonization, how best can we implement them, use them, and strike a balance together with the natural output that we have as Africans. And I believe if we go figure the right formula, Africa will be the next big thing.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, everyone is talking about Africa being the next frontier, and especially in the fourth industrial revolution, as you have mentioned. But when you are breaking down the statistics, I could not help but think about it's cute when, the literacy levels are below, but there's also a gender lens to this thing. Girl education, I'm thinking about communities where girls are not, reached with the education that we're talking about here. So what are some, I know that's a challenge. So what are some of the cultural barriers do you think that education faces in Kenya?
Luckily, what has happened over the seasons is the girl child in Kenya has actually gotten like immense support. But I believe one of the things is it's not just the girl child who has cultural barriers, but even the boy child. Because if the boy child has the idea that they have to, let's say, be the leaders of the family, they have to be the providers. So you might find there are actually boys who end up not going to school because their parents or guardians tell them, we want you to till the land, we want you to take care of cattle, we want you to do this and that, so that there's like a breadwinner, especially in places where the fathers or the men are like not actively engaged. And then now with the girls, it is now the view of educating a girl may not be
you're gonna get married
as
off
productive.
anyway.
But I want to counter that because let me use myself as an example. In my family, we are 4 girls. We have 5 children, 4 girls, and one brother. And yet my father could have had the choice of just educating my brother and going like, you are the potential of this
Legacy
home.
career.
Yeah, legacy comes from you. But he educated all of us as girls to the highest level of education that we wanted to pursue.
Yes.
And right now, he has reaped the benefits, not only him, but even my mom, of having educated girls.
Yes.
So I think it's important for us to see or note that all our children are important. It's important to give all our children education, because when we give them education allows you to have skill to think, like rational thinking. Education allows you to actually get more room to practice, like it's very hard to be active in an economy if you don't have some type of education.
That's right.
For instance, if you have the formal education, we are asked for papers in school. We are when we are applying for jobs. We are told to show us your certification. But also, if you have an education, if it's not from a formal setup, you have the informal setup. And let me tell you, the Juakali sector in Kenya like runs this economy.
That's where it's at.
Major percent.
Yes.
Like if you check the sectors to do with mechanics, the sectors to do with transportation, all these people are in the quote-unquote Juakali or informal sector, but they run the economy. There is a skill they have that they are employing in this different ventures that is daily running this economy. The Mama Mboga may not have gone to like high tertiary education systems in Kenya, but that little education she received in
maybe primary
is helping her to do 1 + 1 = 2. So her math is mathing, and it's not girl math. It's actually working for her as she's facilitating her day to day. So we should not also look at education in terms of just the formal, but I think if Africa can pardon me, if Africa can figure out how to equally give the informal level of education power, then there are people who may never get a chance to go to formal education, but if they have a place to access informal education, there'll be a balance that will be struck.
Wow. That's beautifully said. So I think we've talked about, these like where we stand, because education was, this thing that apparently the colonialists came, which you have already disbanded that narrative. So my question then would be, why is it important for Africans to create education systems for Africans on the continent, and them being very Afrocentric, that are designed towards innovating solutions for African problems?
One thing that our education system has used as a foundation is basically like the colonial systems. Like for a long time, Kenya used to have the education system, the 844 system, and now we have shifted into the CBC. And I think that in itself should be telling us that we are realizing there is a different type of learning that our students need in order to maximize potential. For instance, today, don't mind me using myself as an example.
Yes,
because,
please. You're an African. You're a 21st century African who is educated as well.
I'm planning to be more educated.
Fantastic. Let's go.
So, for instance, when I was growing up, when I was in primary school, I had different skills that I knew about myself. Like I was good in acting. I was good in dancing. I was good in singing. Pardon my voice.
Not anymore? You don't sing, you don't dance no more?
Wait. Chill, relax. When growing up, I used to watch movies and I will see like there is the art schools that are like within the Western Hemisphere. Like people used to look forward to joining Berkeley School of Music because that's my dream. I want to really become resourceful in like music. So like on my end, I used to say, if I was in the US of A, perhaps I will be in a more artistic kind of schooling compared to the system that I was in Kenya, because I not only had the capacity to develop when it comes to mental skill and mental capacity for education, but I also had all these other skills that if they could have been broken even, perhaps today I will be the Whitney Houston of Kenya.
But
unfortunately. So I think when we are thinking about education, and I believe that's where now with the CBC we are at as Kenyans, is we have seen that our kids have more potential. Not all of them will become doctors.
That's
Not
right.
all of them will become lawyers.
Yeah.
So what other gifts do they have,
Yeah.
and how early can we identify these gifts and then lead them into pursuing those particular fields?
Yes.
Is it working? It will take time.
It will take
because
time.
we have to also think about all the logistics. Not all schools in Kenya have the same capacity, unfortunately.
Yes.
Like there are private schools that have way better facilities compared to like public schools. And there are
yes.
public schools that have way better facilities compared to other public schools. And there are actually rural places in Kenya where there's scarcity of like platforms for education.
Yes.
Like right now with like our current situation now that we have like come from the floods and everything,
Yeah.
there are actually schools like in Tana River that have not resumed
Just
because
as yet.
everything
Was
was
planted
swiped
and
by the
just-
rains and they have to start from scratch. Yet there are kids who've been in school for the last 2 weeks or 3,
Yeah.
give or take,
Thereabout.
who have been learning. So you see already
Discrepancies. You can see
there are
that.
challenges that
Yes.
are there. And
Yeah.
yet, at the end of this year, they will all sit for the same exam and be expected to.
do the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ooh, wow. All right. So you're listening to the Power Morning Drive Show, and we are talking about education in Africa. What do we need to do to ensure that we build resilient systems for relevant learning on the African continent, educating a 21st century African who is not only prepared for life in Africa, but also life in Africa through a global scale. When we come back, we talk about the intricacies, or rather the intersectionality between technologizing or digitizing education in Africa, because Vambo AI and Vambo Academy are leading the course when it comes to technologizing and innovating education in Africa. So you want to stick around for that that discussion. Remember, you can get in touch with us on our social media platforms. That is TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Yes, on Power Radio. And also you can catch this live broadcast on our YouTube channel at Power Radio on YouTube, and also on our website, www.power254.org/Power Radio. For now, let's get some music and we will see you after that short break.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Tungepatana ukinikata mara moja wezi nitamalaya, and you're telling everybody that this Gucci's on fire. Only fans kwenye imefika na fungua only fans, kauna nipenda tu mafea in advance, kwenye imefika no romance with no finance. Only fans, yeah yeah, only fans kwenye imefika na fungua only fans, unanipenda tu mafea in advance, penye imefika no romance with no finance. Only fans, yeah yeah.
Hello, ladies blowing up my phone. I keep hearing you are so bomb. Wakituma fea twakuja kwako. Sikujikasi form ya door, itabidi ukanje ndo tupige show. wajue ni kubaya. Hii muziki ya Kenya twaipeleka Ulaya, na temperature inapanda, warazi wanakwaya. Tutashinda magrami before tumeretire. Mise only fans walimefika na tambua only fans. Kanika kitu umetumia only fans. Walimefika nafanyia only fans. Only fans, yeah, only fans. Walimefika na tambua only fans. Kanika kitu umetumia only fans. Walimefika mutambua only fans. Only fans, yeah.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Mr. Bien right there with Only Fans, and it's playing right here on Power Radio. This is the Power Morning Drive Show. My name is Wanyoike, and we are continuing in our discussion on education in Africa. The question we are asking is, how do we ensure that education in Africa is fully sustained, that we build systems that are resilient for a 21st century education, I beg your pardon, the education of a 21st century African. That was quite a mouthful. And in studio with me is Linah Kitala, as she's helping us to dissect and talk about these issues on a much deeper level. Now, Kitala, we have talked about the impediments and some of the challenges facing the African education system, but I know that it's not all doom and gloom for Africa's education, because technology, yay,
is in the house.
So how do you think technologizing education, or rather how can technology help innovate systems of education in Africa and like optimize or help optimize education systems in Africa?
First and foremost, I think for us to figure out where education, where tech can come in to become a major substitute on how we do education in Africa, I think we need to figure out where are we coming from as Africans. So as I've said, we are coming from the background of colonization.
Yes.
We also have the background of, unfortunately, some of the African countries have faced political instability. Some have recovered, some are halfway recovery, others are still in the baby steps of recovering from such situations.
Yes.
There are also conflicts that happen within a nation. They might not be as pronounced as a political coup, but there are intertribal clashes that happen within certain African countries. In Kenya, there's a time in the Mount Elgon frontier, there were tribal clashes. That definitely affects your education system, because there is no child nor a parent who is of their right status of mind who will send their kids to school, yet there is instability. Then we also have natural calamities such as famine,
floods.
We never thought
that we would be in such a predicament.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here we find ourselves that it happened. So now, how do we navigate that? So that's part of our backdrop. Also, one of the things that has been a challenge in our education sector has been the poverty within the African continent.
Yeah.
We can't escape that there are parts of our countries as in the African continent that poverty is truly a major stumbling block for some of them to have leave alone food for them even now to even think to pursue an education.
Yeah.
So we have that as a backdrop. But then we also have the wave that is coming in of penetration of internet within the African continent. And in the last few years, between 2016 and 2021, approximately 160 million people in Africa have been on the internet with broadband, like internet being like facilitating access and digital services like online learning and stuff has been happening.
Yes.
Then with this, like with the there's also like internet access in Africa stands at currently 28%, while global average is 51%. So we're not badly off. Like child, we are 28.
Yeah.
Still room 30
Something
also
percent,
to
yeah.
go, but
Yeah.
it's there.
Yes.
So then we have to think about then how are we going to use the internet to make it easier with the kind of backdrop that we are coming from. So how are we then going to take advantage of people having their phones, people having access to internet,
Yes.
and strike a balance? So does that mean that we have to think about not only having lessons that are set up in classrooms and perhaps take advantage of using the online platforms for our children or any other person who's still pursuing education? Because FYI, education never ceases. If you want to pursue it, you can pursue it as long as you're alive. You don't have to feel that I am of a certain age, then I can't get an education.
Yes.
So there's always room.
Yeah.
So one of the things we have to think about when it comes to the tech space or using tech is one thing tech can help us do is enhance our learning outcomes. Like if someone can use tech to then break down information that is massive and like give it like structure and make it more easier to understand, then it gives the person who is actually having access to that information to be able to decipher even faster and quicker. This can be a teacher who then gets like a digitized kind of training or a digitized kind of access as they are learning how to be teachers. And then with that capacity, they come and break down this information to their students in an even more faster way. There's a time, I believe it was part of the Kenyan government, and I think it's still one of the projects that they want to do, is to have computers like
computer mediated education,
exactly, in schools.
Yeah.
And then during COVID, we started like
laptop.
Yes, there was no schooling.
Yeah.
So our kids had to find a way to adapt, and most of us like had to buy laptops and had to get like gadgets to assist our children in learning. And then also with digitization, now we have digital TV. There is actually a channel called Education TV,
Yes.
EdTV.
Yeah.
So a TV station that is solely fully fledged and solely run with educational content. Then, so there's so many ways to think about how to use technology.
Yes.
And what we do as Vambo is...
Yes, finally. Now we get to talk about the meats and the bones. Yes.
One, we are very big with language. Unless you live under a rock... you daily use language to communicate. And language is a big part of culture. If you can be able to understand the person seated next to you.
I'm not sure I'm understanding you.
Because I'm using nonverbal cues. Anyway.
I'm kidding.
But if you're able to understand the person who's seated next to you, then so many things are made easier. So many things are become easier to execute.
Yes.
So with Vambo Academy, we are very big in languages, and not just any language, but African languages, and ensuring that African languages have a platform. And for our systems, it's more of an informal setup where you can come and you can learn a language. Like if you feel like, I would really love to interact with my neighbors in Uganda, and Luganda seems as the way for me to make a more interactive walk with someone on that side, then you can come and you can learn this language via our platform.
Yes.
At Vambo Academy, you can register, you can have your online classes, and you can enjoy a new language. And there's like a duration of when to take this course, like approximately 6 weeks. you will be given a tutor and someone like to run you through that language. But as we did that, we realized we really need more capacity to execute this. So that is how Vambo AI was born.
Yes.
So
Which
is Vambo Artificial Intelligence, a platform that now hosts the languages, and you can use it to either transcribe, translate, write in the various languages. So how that works is you feed in your data or your information, let's say in English.
Yes.
And I want my outcome to be Swahili, then I can get that outcome in Swahili. So how then can such a tech or such technology help? You can be in the rural side of Kenya, or you can be in Kenya and you want to implement a project or an educative project, but you find out that not all your students are proficient in English and Swahili, but some of them are really good in their mother tongues. So then what do? You can use the Vambo API or like the systems, and you can incorporate it within an education system where this information that is like maths and English and Swahili that is in English can be then broken down and translated and given to your students now in the localized languages.
Yes.
For instance, you can decide you want it in Kikuyu, in Swahili. Like if you're in Uganda, you can decide it's Luganda. If you're, pardon me, if you're in
Ethiopia,
Ethiopia, it can be Amharic. If you're in Rwanda, it can be Kenya Rwanda. That way, all your students who are in that room, or every person who's participating in wanting to learn something, if English and Swahili seems to be a challenge for them, they can have an alternative form of learning using the dialect that is most familiar or palatable for them.
Wow.
Yes.
Exciting. I mean, you guys are, Vambo AI and Vambo Academy is right at the center of, revolutionizing what we are talking about, EdTech and its contributions towards education and building resilient education systems in Africa. Why was it important for Vambo to just hold up a moment and think, wait a minute, our indigenous languages need to be at the center of this thing that we are calling knowledge exchange and knowledge production and knowledge transaction. So why was it important for Vambo AI and Vambo Academy to center indigenous languages and even in terms of cultural expression in the bid towards promoting education in Africa?
Okay. One thing for any culture to run and for that to be sustainability of any culture, language has to be part of the bigger scope of how that culture will be sustained. So if our learning systems and everything that we interact with is in a foreign language, then it means that everyone will be pursuing that foreign language and excluding themselves from their native language. So if I find that my native language, quote unquote, is not making economical sense, it's so easy for me to drop the language and focus on like languages that I feel will give me more opportunity. But ain't it unfair for us to learn Spanish, learn French, learn Mandarin and German and all these languages that are out there because we want opportunities out there or because they want to bring opportunities in here, yet we have language, it's only that we haven't found a way of optimizing and maximizing that language and saying, even us, when you're coming this way, you can learn our language so that we can have like more bilateral relations and interactions. So for the reason why indigenous languages is in our core or the heart of Vambo is because for any culture to survive, there has to be a sustenance of that culture. And language is the one way you pass information from one generation to another. And if Africans can use their language to pass our perspectives, to pass our beliefs, to pass like what
Our
we
attitudes,
our
yeah,
attitudes,
yeah.
and most importantly,
Yeah.
for anything to be successful, you can't escape you. Like if Africa wants to succeed globally,
Yes.
if Africa wants to have a say, Africa cannot walk in like a different continent.
That's
Africa has to walk in like the African continent. And what is the African continent? The African continent is our skin color. The African continent is our regalia. It's our cultural experience.
Our
the African
food.
continent is our food. But most importantly
Yes,
here,
yes.
the African continent is the languages that are in Africa.
Yeah, and I mean, beautifully said, we have over 2,000 languages on the African continent alone. That already is an opportunity so massive that we need to tap in. Because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she trades in China. Do you know the people from any other continent or maybe African countries, like they cannot trade unless you use WeChat? Yeah, like WeChat is the only way that Chinese and people from outside China are able to communicate in terms of even business. So we can see that it's quite, like it's a mediated innovation and solution to so many things. Oh wow! So we've talked about,
in essence, what you're saying, moving forward, if you come to Africa, Vambo AI
Vambo
will be the
AI
thing that you need
is
to use
what you need to use
to communicate in Africa.
Yeah, in fact, twende break because now I cannot continue. After that, it's done. Let's go on a short break, and then when we come back, we talk about the policy environment. Is policy and our governments helping in terms of ensuring that the environment within which EdTech innovations are progressing, or we are not doing anything in that front, in the policy front. This is Power Morning Drive Show. I'm Wanyoike, and we are gonna go on a short musical break. And when we come back, we talk about the policy environment as in regards to EdTech innovations.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
Road trips and young romances, breakups and second chances. Our rhythm steers through all these years. If love is a drum, you are my drummer. I'll dance to your beat only forever. If love is a drum, you are my drummer. I'll dance to your beat. My Sukuti love. Is it good for me? Is it good for me? My Sukuti love. Is it good for me? Is it good for me? Bringing the one ding ding and the boom boom boom, adding my nyatiti. Then it's me and you. My Sukuti love. Is it good for me? Is it good for me? Is it good? Heartbeats and stolen glances, oceans and wedding marches. Our music plays through all these days. If love is a drum, you are my drummer. I'll dance to your beat only forever. If love is a drum, you are my drummer. I'll dance to your beat. My Sukuti love. Is it good for me? Is it good for me? My Sukuti love. Is it good for me? Is it good for me? Bringing the one ding ding and the boom boom boom, adding my nyatiti. Then it's me and you. My Sukuti love.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
And they're about to kill it. You ain't ready for this, Nairobi. If you killing it, put your hands up in the air for this one time.
Feeling so fresh, so juicy. Only rock with the best, I'm choosy. I got the sauce, I'm choosy. In the ghetto at the same time, bougie. Ooh, wanna take a photo, cause my style look good. Caught a good vibe, I can feel it in my soul. Driving around Nairobi like a boss. I don't mean to brag, no, I don't mean to floss. Of course, on the highway, listening to Kagwe. To New West, thank God that it's Friday. Man, we so fly, it's our time. On the dance floor, do my latte wine. I'm a kawaida, I kill it,
kama kawaida, niko na mistari na niko na mawaida. If she asks for money, never leave with the broad. And if he say he'll pay you next week, he's a fraud. East African girl, hella mean with the quad. One time, then I leave with the squad. She say she got the sauce, I got the mayo. The way I rock the city, Nairobi be like, ayo. Hey, we can chill in my car. You can listen to my new sheet. Now do you like it or not? Yeah. Can you with my bullshit? Hey, wanna babaika? I feel it, I feel it, I do. Oh, oh, the way I kill it, I do. And anything you want, yeah, I feel it, I do.
Queen start, favorite part. Ride around Nairobi sitting pretty on the tracks. I'm making my new flag. It's greater than you can. Imagine venye tumewakilisha with my clan. Let's talk about it. I've been about it, dream about it. Worked so hard I became about it. Worked so hard they became about me. Ask about me, ask about me. What's surrounding? All the squad is who's around me. All the sauce is who's around me. Real, trill. Live for the thrill, Lucky Luciano, baby, live for the kill. Deal, in something important, for something important. Kuha so ni constant like Ida. I kill it, I do. I kill it, I do. Kamakawa Ida. I kill it, I do. I kill it, I do. Kamakawa Ida. I kill it, I do.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
This party don't stop. This party don't stop. This party don't stop. This party don't stop.
Here we go. See, I'm loving what you do to me, so if it's cool, let me know. We can take it to the VIP because the party don't stop till 3. Meaning you're in the crib all over me. CIBTRIPPER, and we are CAMP to the moolah. We blow this bazooka. It's crazy, baby, how I'm on you
like Slim to shit it. Yeah. So let me see your head bob, cause this party don't stop.
Cause tonight, you better bring somebody to the club. To the club. Cause tonight, we're calling everybody, so get up. Alright. This party don't stop. Don't stop. This party don't stop. It goes on. This party don't stop. Don't stop. This party don't stop. It goes on and on.
Let me give your body a job, employ a new technique. Work it, rock it like a cradle in bed. I need a free. Wait a minute, let me clarify. The way you maneuver, I can't deny. So scream from the top of your lungs and maybe I'll pacify ya. Take over, my baby, it ain't over. No fat lady, navigate to the floor, make your way. Dilate, give me more A-OK. It ain't fair, the way you're shaking it and moving it, baby. Make them stare. Step up in the building, everybody and go up. Then it's it.
You better bring somebody to the club. To the club. Cause tonight, we're calling everybody, so get up. Alright. This party don't stop. Don't stop. This party don't stop. It goes on. This party don't stop. Don't stop. This party don't stop. It goes on and on. So get your hands up.
Get ready to party on the dance floor, jamming till 6 in the morning.
So get your drinks up.
Don't spill on nobody. Hit the bar, get some girls, cause the bottles we poppin'. But I'm a little bit too bubbly, so all the ladies look lovely, but can't tell if they ugly, cause someone get these girls off of me. Meet me by the bar, baby girl, round 3 now, let's go get some shots. Drink up, cause you know the party don't stop.
Tonight, you better bring somebody to the club. To the club. Cause tonight, we're calling everybody, so get up. Alright. This party don't stop. Don't stop. This party don't stop. It goes on. This party don't stop. Don't stop. This party don't stop. It goes on and on. Don't stop. It goes on and on. Don't stop. It goes on and on.
Your kind of music, all day, all night, right here on your only station, Power Radio.
See, the thing is, that song is called Party Don't Stop by Kamula, but they went ahead and Party Stopped, man. We were just talking off air that Kamula was just quite a vibe during the time that those kids just came out. And every song was a hit. And then they decided, you know what? We've had our ride. Bye-bye. And I've never you also just, I've not recovered. I need them to come back and do a concert, like a major one, a throwback.
Maybe in the near future.
Tafadhali.
Salty Soul and Camp Mula should do a concert comeback.
Yeah.
We will be waiting.
Yes.
We have said it.
Seriously. Kwani bands in Kenya just have like a mortality rate?
No, not in Kenya. It's a global
thing. It's
thing.
a global phenomenon.
Yeah,
but Westlife is still,
No. Even those dudes had taken a major break.
A break is fine, but don't just come and just go.
Remember, a group is like different individuals, and sometimes as you're walking this journey, you're not in the same space. So
that's true. Yeah.
It's inevitable. Just like Thanos' finger.
Yeah. Okay. But Kampula, we want you all back. It's playing right here on Power Radio. This is the Power Morning Drive Show. My name is Wanyoike, and I'm not alone in studio. I am joined by the community lead at Vambo AI, Miss Linah Kitala, who has been dropping some gems and gems after gems about education in Africa. We've been discussing about, the impediments of education in Africa. Then we've talked about technologizing education and how to innovate education through EdTech solutions. And now, Linah, let's talk about, the policy environment, and, the African government's commitment to this whole EdTech revolution, because I could see from what you are talking and sharing with us, is that this is the next big thing. It's where it's at. Like, we cannot talk about education in the next 10, 20, 30 years without talking about EdTech.
Yeah.
So what is the policy and governance environment? Do you feel like there is commitment, political goodwill from governments across the continent of Africa in ensuring that we have amicable solutions when it comes to EdTech innovations?
I believe it's there. The only challenge now comes with, with every tech experience, there has to be the capacity to hold the tech.
Yes.
So I believe every government in Africa now is working at having digitalization and the internet penetration within their spaces.
Yes.
It's a huge one, because if you don't have internet and if you don't have digitization and there's no capacity to actually run tech in your country, then that becomes the first hindrance to EdTech. In general.
Yes.
Currently, I believe in Africa, there are more than 300 EdTech startups and innovators, and more coming up. So I think the policies and room for EdTech is there, but there just has to be a conversation, because remember, the ecosystem of education is not just government.
Yeah.
And it's not just suppliers of the EdTech, but there is the learners themselves. Are the learners ready to actually get into a space where they're not used to the formal kind of setting of learning, but they're willing to participate in an EdTech kind of setup.
Yes.
Their teachers themselves are our teachers equipped to actually handle EdTech when executing classes and when learning and when teaching, or will they feel like this EdTech thing is coming to take my job? You know, there are all those underlinements. Then there are the parents. Remember, parents will also incur the costs of EdTech.
Yes,
Because
internet, you're talking
if our governments are not able to get the equipment or the gadgets that are needed, some of these things can be costly.
It's very expensive.
Be part of the costs that parents incur in school fees and such kind of things. So are parents also ready to embrace EdTech? Then remember, EdTech, education in general, there are those who are in the academics space, like professors and people who've been in academia for a while. They kind of know the atmosphere and the landscape of academia.
Yes.
So you cannot also come in with EdTech and not think about where the people in academia are going to play this role. And now then with that, now the policymakers can come in and they have to consider all these people within this ecosystem and come up with laws and guidelines and things that will allow all these things to flourish, even in an EdTech situation.
Yes.
So EdTech is a good milestone in the African continent. If we consider it, I believe it can level a lot of fields of learning and capacities within our schooling systems, but we really need to be strategic as we think about how to incorporate it within our systems.
Amazing. And so we just maybe focus a little bit on Vambo AI. I know that it started off in the southern part of Africa, in South Africa to be specific.
Yes.
And then now you're launching into East Africa.
Yeah.
What has been the reception so far? And could you compare within the two regions? Are people understanding? And do you think the two frontiers need different solutions because of, customized and cultural differences and whatnot?
In every space that you enter, even now, if I come here with merchandise, or someone walks in here with merchandise, the way they will sell that merchandise to you is not the way they sell it to me, because our tastes and preference are totally different. So it's true, in the South, the space there is different. Like one of the things I know that in the South is when you get to a certain level, I think as you're breaking from your primary into your secondary, you have to do an exam with one of the local dialects as part of the examining system. But in Kenya, It is. It is
Never heard
more
of.
like in English, and then now every major exam is done like in English. So you see, the pressure to learn like your indigenous language in the South can be kind of different compared with learning your indigenous language in the East.
Yeah.
And then, like, let's use an example. In Kenya, our main languages for administration and for functioning is English and Swahili. But English takes more preeminence or dominance compared, let's say, to Tanzania, where now it's vice versa. Swahili is the more dominant, and then English is like
a little bit.
And then you go to Uganda, and English is like
Very
moi. Swahili maybe
not, but Luganda,
you know. So you see, all this for you to adapt any form of tech, especially in language, you have to consider which language is more like prominent and more people are more proficient in a particular space in order for you to create solutions that are like effective for them. So one thing, the best thing about Vambo, its API can be used in any, whether you are in education, whether you are in tourism, whether you're just someone who wants to learn language, whether you want to integrate it in business, in the banking sector, you just need to use the base of our platform and then incorporate it into your systems, and it gives you the languages. So what Vambo AI is offering is you have a larger audience, especially within the African continent, who can connect to your information, who can connect to who you are as a brand, whether you're in business, whether you're in education, whether you are even in tech, the tech space itself, or in communication. Like, language is big. So what Vambo AI offers with, right now we are working on version 3, and we will have like 50 languages, African languages, leave alone the rest of the languages spoken globally. So you see, if you are really interested in penetrating the African market, then with Vambo AI, what you're saying is you will not only reach the audiences that speak English, Swahili, Kinyarwanda, Amharic, and these languages, but you have the possibility of getting to the Oromo, you have the possibility of getting to the Lingala speaking person, you have the possibility of talking to the person who speaks Somali, and all these people who you never thought can be your clientele or can have like, you can reach out to them when it comes to what you're offering, then the possibility is there. And we're also saying to everyone else who now speaks these languages but never knew how to step into the global space or make their faces known, you have a platform now that can do that for you.
Amazing. And something that has just crossed my mind is, I mean, you guys are essentially sort of mortalizing African languages through technology. And we have extinct languages. Like, for example, in Kenya, there are communities like the Ogieks, for example. So my question would be, are you interested in also preserving these extinct, communities of people as well?
As I mentioned, because language is big for us, one of the things is we can't escape the place of culture and the place of heritage. So Vambo is also big in working with institutions and people who are in the culture space and heritage space, because we don't want to we can't preserve language and not be like actively involved in culture and in heritage. And one of the things we need to realize is we are not just building, our heart as Vambo is, we don't just want to build an AI tool that will give you feedback. We also want to like capture the nuances and that which is African about our languages. The soul of the
Africa.
language. So that if truly you use our platform and you are an African or outside African, you can have an experience with it. So, but it takes money. So
it takes
kindly.
money. Yeah. It's interesting because
Hashtag fund Vambo.
Shameless plug right there.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, my next question was about funding. Like how do we finance startups like Vambo, for example, and why is it important to even do that?
It's and this I'm not speaking about it as startups in general globally, but this one's I'm speaking specifically to Africans. It's important for Africans to support what Africans are building in this season because we are building solutions understanding the continent.
Yes.
We are not building from outside
clouds.
thinking that this is what is needed, but we are building inside knowing that this is actually what can work for our people.
Yes.
So believing in African startups and formulating ways to, whether you're in the private sector, in government, or just an angel, a person who, an angel investor, is big and is huge, especially for the upcoming generation of Africans who I believe carry the solutions that this continent need. They just need the room, the space, the exposure, and the capacity now with funding to build amazing things for the continent.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the opportunities then that you see from this point going forward? How big is this EdTech revolution? Where do you see it going the next 10, 5, 15, 20 years?
I believe it will be major, and it can be. I was in a room the other day, and there was this It was a room full of African conversations, and one of the things that was majorly shared in the room, and I'll share it now, is we were looking at. You see, naturally, rivers and oceans are have major are major, like in terms of economies and major in terms of negotiations. So any place where either the Atlantic Ocean passes or the Indian Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, like especially if you're on the shores of these oceans or a river or a lake, you usually have an advantage because communities usually come and build along. Even now, one of the things that gives Kenyan an advantage is because we have the port, because we have access to the sea.
Yes.
So access to any water body then gives you an upper hand and gives you a way of like negotiating at the table. So we were looking at the landscape when it comes to the space of the internet and the space of social media and social platforms. And just checking at the kind of streams that are there, like YouTube was a stream, and all these platforms like Instagram and stuff were streams.
Yes.
But Africa had no stream
At all.
We are relying on other people's streams
From outside.
to survive.
Yes.
So then what does that mean in the space of tech for Africa? It means Africa has to start building its own tech stream
Internally.
so that we can go to the table and with the power of we have a stream as Africans. So what can be huge for Africa is if we support the tech space, the innovators who are building in Africa. Perhaps we'll get to a place where, like the African Union now with the African Day, we will, with the African Day and with the African Union coming and bringing us together as Africans, we can start developing technology under the African Union, perhaps, or even governments can build tech and present them to the African Union, and then now those technologies that we build in Africa can be presented globally, and they can be told you can negotiate, you can work in Africa with these techs to build this and this and this within the African systems, hence creating our own stream as the African continent. So Africans really need to think about how they will build tech to create a stream so that we have a say globally.
Oh, and I mean, this, of course, comes amid, the Africa Connect Summit just happened 2 weeks ago. Now, next week, we have the Africa Development Bank Summit also, conference happening at the KICC. I will be going, and I'm interested to hearing what are some of the, where is the African Development Bank thinking in terms of funding and maybe if technology,
Actually, one of the things the African Development Bank, the president said that one of the things they really want to do is build a bank system in Africa that can actually be funding African startups.
Amazing.
Because he was saying one of the greatest, he even gave an example. Apparently, President Kagame one day was jogging and he was approached by this lady and the security people were like, no, Stay away from our president. And then President Kagame told the lady to approach him. So they had this conversation and the president asked her, so what can I do for you? And she was like, I just need this X amount of money. So the president gave her money. Then things were quiet. I think for like 2 to 3 years, there was nothing happening. Then one day, I believe that either she came personally or she wrote to the president and she told President Kagame that, you remember that money you gave me? I am that lady, blah, blah, blah.
Stopped your joke.
Yeah.
Who stopped your
And
joke?
she was like, that amount of money you invested, it wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I sold that company in the tunes of billions. Like she made, she went built and she sold it at if not millions, it was like a billion.
Exponentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then this says, if she never joked on that path, or President Kagame happened to miss the joke, she'll have missed the opportune moment to get the investment that she needed on her business.
Yes.
And remember, this business did not only feed her, it not only changed her life, but I believe it changed her family's life. And it changed everyone who was connected to that vision.
That's right.
It changed their lives once she like broke even.
Wow.
So imagine how much more if there's someone who's seated with a vision, with potential, but they just need funding. And they don't have 5 to 8 years experience to go approach a bank and say, here is my portfolio. So I believe Africa needs to think about how to support innovators in the African space and give them room, because we have solutions for Africa. In Africa, we just need the right exposure and the funding to build what we need to build.
The moral of the story, guys, start jogging around State House. I'm glad that I walk around State House.
No.
Do I jog? No. But
you start walking.
Maybe we can start with walking. Yeah. And I'll start walking around State House because that might be me. That might be us in the next anyway. I'm kidding. Oh my goodness. You know, they say that time really flies when you're having a good time. We only have 4 minutes. And I want you to look at the camera or look at me or wherever it is that you are. Just give your clarion call to whoever is listening. Where do we go from here? Education in Africa needs help. Give us your clarion call to whoever is listening. Yes.
With a lot of passion and insistence, I say, whatever solutions Africa needs is in Africa. So as we're thinking about what to do in our education sector, what to do to build resilient educational systems in Africa, let us go back to our story. Let us go back to what is our foundation. How have we been doing education all while before every technology and every other thing hit us as Africans? Then how then do we leverage what we know as Africans in the education system and apply what now is globally like recognized as a way of learning? But above everything else, innovation will come from us. The innovation that we need that understands and works for us is in Africa. So support African innovation and allow EdTech to be the place where education can be morphed and can get its gist and can have like its next life when it comes to the African in the 21st century.
Wow. Beautifully said. I mean, that was an Amanda. Yes. Where can people get in touch with Vambo?
You can follow us at Vambo Academy on Facebook. You can follow us on LinkedIn at Vambo AI. You can follow us on Twitter at Vambo AI. Follow our journey, follow our stories. If you want to be part of the journey, you can also go to info at Vambo AI. So we are here. We are waiting to hear from you, and we can't wait to see where the journey takes us as a whole, as Africans.
Yeah. Is there an email contact that they can
you can use my email. That is Linah at vambo.ai if you want to reach out.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, fantastic. That's all the time we had for you guys. Thank you so much, Linah, and thank you for the amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you.
This is not only an innovation for this time, it's going to like it's going to even go beyond what you could have ever imagined, and I'm so excited to see where this journey goes and where it leads. So thank you so much.
Looking
for
forward to, and thank you, Anne, for hosting us. Thank you, Power Radio. We appreciate you having us today.
Amazing. Thank you for the privilege of your time. As we go out, do you have a song that you would love to request as we sign out? A special one for our guest.
A special one.
Yes.
Okay. You've got peace.
Yeah.
Any song by Issa.
Any song by Issa. Oh, yeah.
Mosmos.
Good one. Good choice. All right, folks, that has been the Power Morning Drive Show. I hope you have learned and picked one or two leaves from our discussion today about, building education systems in Africa that are resilient and relevant for the 21st century African. All right, mimi sina la ziada. Kwa wale wote ambao walifanikisha hili broadcasti, we want to say thank you to my producer, Flozy. She's looking at me with like, girl, what are you talking about? Please go home. Take care of yourselves, guys. It's Friday. Happy Friday. Kuwa na weekend njema. And we will see you on Monday. We shall be talking about mental health because this has also been Mental Health Awareness Month. Aya basi, mimi sina la ziada. See you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on Monday. Bye.
Power Radio. Tune in and power up.
Kenya nzima kama mimi mwenye kushika maiki na kuwapa Kiswahili shua rhymes kitua rhymes pasua vifua na safari hii ma MC na waombea dua nikiwa hit kwa industry likimanuva kama mvua na nyesha mahewa nikileta wako wengi lakini it's obvious I'm better hot in here tumeshika maiki karibia brother kamata sister kata kiuno kwa mdundo na ndio mtindo There's no defiance, navuta more crowds than Rainbow Alliance. So akiuliza, sema ni Isa, meshika na kutu, roga kabisa.